Hello. So first off, if you're interested in potentially purchasing the Oxi One, there is an affiliate link that you could use. It's directly from Oxi Instruments, and there is a 5% discount on that link, so use it. This has been by far my favorite sequencer for about the past year and a half or so. As soon as I received it, it actually even gave me a greater understanding of Elektron sequencers and the combination of Elektron sequencers with a separate sequencer. So it's been great. You could run 4 sequencers at the same time, and there's several different modes of sequencers. So you have mono, poly, chord, multitrack, which is what we're going to look at, stochastic, which I still haven't looked at, I will eventually, and matricial mode, which I'm obsessed with. Today's video is about the Multitrack Sequencer, which works especially well with, you guessed it, drums. So I'm linked up to the analog rhythm here. If you have any community questions about this video, go check out my Discord. There's a bunch of people who will probably be discussing different aspects of this video. I will be involved in that conversation. So let's get into the basics of the multi-track mode on the Oxi One. So let me just select it here. Multitrack. If I hold down on this first sequencer, you can see that I could jump from one channel or voice to the next, and I could also change the MIDI routing per channel. With Elektron sequencers, it's very simple. So voice 1 is channel 1, voice 2 is channel 2, etc. The coordination here is a little bit tricky, so you have to make sure that you're holding down on each of these. So channel 1, I'm gonna hold down on this one, channel 2, hold down on this one, channel 3. This will be a 4-track thing for now. That'll give us enough to work with. Before going any further, I just realized this is an Elektron sequencer, right? So what's the point of sequencing an Elektron sequencer, which is already integrated into itself and extremely strong? You might think that doing this is redundant, and depending on your approach, it actually might be, but for the demonstration of this video, it works the same for other setups, right? So it's really for the demonstration, but at the same time, a very strong sequencer like the Oxi One in combination with an Elektron sequencer. It's pretty magical because the Oxi One could do things that the analog rhythm can't do, and vice versa. So it's just a great combination to really pull as much as you can out of this instrument. I actually have a Patreon version specifically on this topic with the Oxi One as well as the Digitac 2. You could also check out the extended version of this video on my Patreon, which is linked in the description of this video. That being said, I just blasted you there, I know. So we have our first 4 channels here. I personally really like 16-step sequencers because you have a visual of everything that's happening. It just makes things a lot easier for me, but if you'd like to extend your sequence to 32 steps, 48 steps, 64 steps, so now if I play it, you can see that it's bouncing from one page to the next. So I'll bring it back to 16 steps. If you want like an odd time amount of steps, something unusual, you just hit end and twist the 3rd knob here to something odd. So I'll throw in a common kick pattern that I've been really liking these days. If I want a visual for the velocity of each step, I just hit down this first encoder, maybe bring up some of these kicks, bring some of them down. The second encoder is where I could change the notes of each of these. And from here I could add steps as well, and they're automatically pitched to whatever note that I choose. With the 3rd encoder, I'm able to change the gate of each of the notes, but for now, I'm pretty happy with this kick pattern. Having this sort of per step visual control is great. It does go a little bit deeper than this, and let's explore that with a different voice with the snare. So I'll do the same thing here. I'm just gonna hit play, hit the velocity, and then figure out where I wanna add some notes. That's cool. Snare, let's play around with this a little bit. Ooh, yeah. Maybe add some effects on this, delay. If you want to zero in and change parameters on a specific step, you could of course do that. You just hold down on that specific step, and these are the parameters that you can control. Right, so I'm changing the tuning on these particular snares. If you want even more precision, you hit shift, hold down on a step, and it gives you even more parameters to work with. So let's say this specific note, I only want it to play 50% of the time. There's also offset, which is like a micro timing. The only thing here is that it's kind of difficult. Like, I wish I had bigger hands because it's hard to do all this at once, but here I'll try and, maybe there's a different way of doing this, but you get the point. I'm able to offset specific notes within the sequence. There's also a retrigger, so what happens if I turn that on to, let's say, 3? Otherwise it's a bit too intense. Okay, now I'm gonna bring this back on the grid. Let's explore it a little bit deeper, looking into the Euclidean sequencer on this third voice here on the hi-hat voice. This one right here. The Euclidean sequencer is sort of tucked away. So if you hit this dice, this brings up the random performer mode. If you hit shift and this dice, then you're opening up the Euclidean sequencer specifically in multi-track mode. A basic explanation of Euclidean sequencers in general, they're pretty much the same concept across the board. There might be some slight variations. So if you know how any other Euclidean sequencer works, then you'll probably understand this right away. It's actually pretty easy to figure out either way. In this case, you have the length of your sequence, which again, you could go odd time or 32 steps. I'm pretty sure it goes up to 64 steps. There's the pulse parameter, so how many steps you'd like to add within that, in this case, 16-step sequence. There's rot, which I'm pretty sure stands for rotation. It essentially permutate. It'll take whatever rhythm that you have. So let's say something with more pulses. So that's the hi-hat rhythm. If I want to rotate that, it just moves that entire rhythm over by a 16-step, two 16 steps, right? You got the point. You could move it wherever you want, essentially. And then the last thing is inversions. It inverses the steps versus rest. So at this point, this is our rhythm. If I invert it, all of the steps that were silent are now triggered. It's very basic. There's only 4 parameters. That's the technical way of using it. And now I'll show you what I think are a few sweet spots, like rhythmically speaking, within this Euclidean sequencer. Essentially, however many pulses that you choose, the Euclidean sequencer will divvy that up evenly across the 16 steps. So let's say that's kind of cool, right? So we're stepping into what sounds like polyrhythmic territory, sort of, like kind of jagged, odd-timey sounding rhythms. I personally find that the odd number pulses resonate the best, in my opinion. So 3 is cool. I think 5, 6, 7, I mean, depending on how sparse you want to be. To me, this is the coolest. Rhythmically, it's the most luscious rhythms that you could come up with. Let's say 5 or 6. Right, and if you think that's too much, like let's say you just want to, I don't know, take that part out of the rhythm, you could do that. You could just take out little chunks of the rhythm. Think of it as like a rhythmic suggestion that you're able to veto and sort of move around. You could take little parts of it that you like. That's too busy. So we'll stick with this. And again, if you'd like to step into all the parameters that we did before, let's step out of the Euclidean sequencer. You could go in and maybe change the velocity of some of these notes, right? Add some extra notes in there if you'd like. Another cool thing you could do is the Euclidean sequencer rhythm, take the accents from that rhythm and then fill in all of the other spots in the sequence with quieter notes. That gives a really cool effect. So I'll do that, just give me a second. So that's kind of cool. If you want something a bit busier, maybe change the pitch of some of these notes as well. Again, if we wanted to, we could go into the shift parameters here and change, the offset of all these. We're not going to do that. I think this is a good example. But what if we wanted to make this even more kind of jagged and odd time-ish? Let's see what happens. So I've changed all those parameters. I think they might get erased if I change the step length here. They do. So everything gets erased. What I did is I changed this to a shorter length, like the pattern length. So now it really is like an odd time thing. Let's change this to 7 steps, right? So now it's 5 triggers in a 7-step length sequence. Maybe 9 steps. As I'm sure you could tell by now, I'm really into techno these days, and odd times in techno they go hand in hand. This is a handshake, by the way. Let's see what we could do with these hats. Change the velocity on these. This is probably something that I would sample. That's sort of my approach. But if you wanted to approach this from more of a performance thing, you could play your thing and, of course, mute tracks, unmute tracks, right? So this could be part of a performance if you want. You could create tracks on the fly, of course. You could all do this all on the fly. Like I'm actually hearing a 4 on the floor clap. Let's see what that does. Check, clap, clap, clap. Maybe the downbeats are like beats 1 and 3. Those are a little bit less accented. So you still have that 2 and 4 happening, like the backbeat, but then there's still something happening on 1 and 3. I could nerd out on this all fucking day. Ooh, with the retrigger. Oh, we can go even a step further with this if we want to add a second sequencer over top of what's happening here, the matricial sequencer. I mean, pretty much every Oxi One related video that I do, it has to involve the matricial sequencer because I fucking love this thing. If you'd like to dive deeper into this rhythm with me, that's included in the extended version of this video over on Patreon. So there's a link for that in the description. There's a ton of other exclusive content as well. It's a small, tight-knit community that's fully dedicated to this sort of stuff. So hope to see you there. If not though, if you're watching this video, there's a good chance that you create this sort of music or are aspiring to create this sort of music. Maybe you're looking for a way to officially distribute that music to all major streaming platforms, in which case, go with DistroKid. They're geared towards artists or producers who are looking to release their music independently, and their entire platform is designed, it's catered to us. And here's a few reasons why they're great. In terms of what's new, they recently released a smartphone app, which makes checking your important DistroKid stats easy and accessible. The app is now available on Android through the Play Store. Essentially everything that you've been able to do on the DistroKid desktop app, you're now able to do through your smartphone. In fact, here's a list of key features that the app offers you. You might want to pause it now if you want to check them out. In today's day and age, we all know how many hats we have to wear as artists and producers. It can just be a lot. So write the music, produce the music. Then you've got to create content to promote it a few weeks before it's released. Then you've got to continue creating content after it's been released to promote it. It's a lot, and I'm not saying that DistroKid does all of this work for you, but they do make it a lot easier for us with the free promotional tools that they offer. The one I use most is Hyperfollow. It's essentially a free landing page or link tree. It's super clean. You could link maybe your latest video, your latest single, other important links you'd like to lead people to. I also use promo cards whenever I release a single. Just select the single that you would like to promote and it'll auto-generate a few different options for you to choose from. Go with DistroKid. It's just over $20 a year to release unlimited music to all major streaming platforms. You keep 100% of your streaming royalties. So many other tools that they offer for someone who's independent. They're made for us. And there is a discount linked in the description of this video if you would like to join. That is all for today, the Oxi One in multi-track mode. Hopefully this video was informative to you in some way. Thanks so much for being here and hope to see you in the next one.